12th, 2024 at 4 p.m. in the council chambers at 150 East Monroe Street. Items to be discussed is Millwall Theater, and I will need a motion for approval of the agenda, please.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? And all in favor? This is going to be a roll call vote. Gary?
Yeoman, aye.
Patterson,
Taylor, aye.
Atkins, Johnson,
So, ayes have it, and we are open for the presentation.
It looks like I'm not. For some reason, I'm in through HDMI.
Sorry.
It's made to have that effect on stuff.
I didn't know he wasn't ready.
I can.
Yes. We're ready anytime.
Okay. I
Anytime
apologize.
he's ready and you're ready, we're
Yeah.
ready.
Thank you all for your time today.
Absolutely.
This had worked the last time I was here. I'm not sure why.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
That's a black. That's a the power and status.
If we transfer it to the thumb drive and put it on your machine, or you can see if I can get it on.
I don't think I do actually on me.
I got one.
Okay, let me download this real quick.
What days are getting down to the 20s this week?
Really?
That's what they said. Right while we had it, right?
He did. He sure did. He's going to do a thumb drive. And just connect that. Thank you, sir. Get the chair right in. It is Millwall Theater.
Okay.
Actually, if you'd like, I have a controller. I can just move the slides myself.
Let's see, what can we talk about? Take it out. Mhm.
All right. Thank you all so much for your patience. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Donnie Bales. I'm the executive director of the Millwall Theater. We are here today to humbly ask for a second allocation of a gift from an entire ask of $150,000, but for an allocation of $75,000. If I had to synthesize what we talked about last time when we were here, I would say it was a need. We certainly needed that, and that's still the case. But if I had to synthesize during this discussion, the word that I would suggest for you to think about as we talk today is investment. What are we investing in if we invest in Millwall Theater, which we're going to talk about today? It actually looks like this isn't working. If you wouldn't mind just sliding down for me, please. Thank you. All right. So as we talk today, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about an organizational update. What has the Millwall been doing since the last time we spoke? How have we been fundraising? How have we been reducing those costs while also increasing our revenue? We're getting ready to launch an endowment campaign, which we'll talk about today. We are working on a solar project, which would be a great thing for downtown as a business to do solar, which is going to reduce our costs, but also kind of be a beacon for other businesses to get involved in solar. We'll talk about our income and expenses. How have we reduced those expenses while increasing our revenue? An allocated fund. Where has our money been going to? I always say you can always tell what a nonprofit cares about the way that they spend their money. So we'll talk about that as well today. And we also want to talk about the town of Wytheville's impact. How would that $75,000 impact the community? And then looking ahead for Millwall Theater. Next slide, please. So in our organizational update, we'll first talk about staffing. Around the last time we spoke, we had around 4 full-time staff members and 9 part-timers. We've reduced that to 2 full-time staff members and 4 part-timers. Now, that requires additional context because when we think about 2 full-time staff members, that includes me. So at Millwall Theater, I am doing all the fundraising, the programming, human resources. Acted as our theater janitor for about the last 6 months. We've really honed back our staffing from that. We had 9 part-timers. We did change those positions to more volunteer. So for context, the part-timers that we had, they were mostly front of house. So that meant ushering, taking tickets, things like that. We've really built our volunteer program to reduce those expenses. And how we did that was we went to a lot of civic clubs in the community and talked about the mission of the Millwall Theater. So for example, the Rotary has volunteered with us a lot, and that's really helped us reduce our impact. The other full-time staff member that we have is our marketing person. And we've combined that as a marketing and ticketing position. So they're really doing 2 jobs in one. So again, just to kind of give context that we've really reduced our expenses, but everyone's kind of doing a little bit of everything now at the Millwall Theater. In terms of fundraising, corporate sponsorships have really taken off at the Millwald, and I should be more specific to say corporate show sponsorships. Since the last time we've talked, we've gained 13 additional sponsorships from corporate organizations in the community. What's interesting is that when we started fundraising for corporate sponsorships, those really went towards anything that we wanted, meaning it could be operational or anything like that. Show sponsorships, which is what we're finding, that's what these donors want because they want to see the impact. They are specifically sponsoring shows, which means that that money doesn't go towards keeping on the lights or, paying the electric bill, paying labor and things like that. It goes towards the show. So whenever we have a show like Hip Prov the other night, any money that we gain from that gets shared with the show promoter. So even though they're sponsoring the show, any net that we have can also go to the promoter. The reason why they want those show sponsorships is that it comes with a lot of marketing benefits. Say, for example, an organization like Hitachi, who just came in at a very large show sponsorship. Their why is that they want to get into schools. So what we did was we pitched them a show where they are bringing in the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra's brass quintet to come in, but they're also paying for educational programs that we're about to talk about. So that it also pays for educational program, but again, it's only going towards programming and operational things like our electricity and things like that. We've really been focusing on mission-driven programming. And what I mean by that is last year, if you were to ask a lot of people in the community, what is the Millwald Theater? They would likely tell you that we're a movie theater. And for the most part, they would have been right. We were showing things like The Wizard of Oz or Batman, things like you could easily get out your phone and easily watch. We've really been focused on live events like live music, comedy, a lot of educational events where our mission is to really be a multi-purpose cultural hub for our community to where you don't have to drive to Roanoke. You don't have to drive to Charlotte. I think everybody in this room has the same goal where we want Wytheville to be a destination place, and that's our goal at the Millwald, which we'll talk about a little bit about the programming that we've been doing. We've also affiliated with more than 20 businesses in our county since the last time we've spoke. That includes vendors that we've used for events, whether it's a local catering company that we've used for an event. We partnered with businesses like Pedals Wine Bar to offer a dinner package. We partnered with schools. We've really been trying to tie in with businesses in our community to where not only the Millwald succeeds, but everyone succeeds. Next slide, please. So if we look at our fundraising overview, we've gained 146 donors since the last time we spoke. Whether that's a $5 gift or a $5,000 gift, those are the new folks that have really started to support the Millwald Theater's mission. Again, we talked about those show sponsorships. I actually think that's an amazing feat. If you think about how tight the race is for fundraising in this community, all the nonprofits that are looking for money, people are really supporting the Millwald. I'm proud to say that we've received 3 grants since the last time we spoke. As you probably know, we did get full funding from the With Bland Foundation at $150,000. The context behind that is, again, that's for programming. If you read that grant application, which is public record, it is for programming. It's to go towards artist fees and educational fees. So it's not to keep the lights on or to pay to have the facility clean and things like that. It's for programming fees. We also received a grant from the Virginia Commission for the Arts, which I'll talk about that project in a second. And we also received a marketing grant to help get the word out. I talked about increasing our volunteers base. So we've had 26 volunteers join hand in hand to support the Millwald Theater as well. One of the programs that we've done lately is we did a Broadway-bound theater camp. So this was a week-long theater camp for 26 children. Everyone's having fun there. It seems like, a fun thing to do in the summer, but this was a top-notch educational class, in my opinion. They took acting lessons. They took dance lessons. There was a voice coach. There was a combat coach. Not only were they learning about theater, I'm not a huge fan of the term soft skills, but they were learning soft skills that they're going to be able to utilize when they get older, such as public speaking. They might be better at a job interview later because of that camp. So we did see a lot of kids that were nervous at first, and you saw their confidence build as the camp went on. So it was just an amazing educational program that we put on. And we partnered with the Wolford House Dinner Theater to do that. We do plan on doing that again. Next slide. This was one of my favorite projects that we've done recently. It was The Spirit of Harriet Tubman. This is a national touring show. We wrote a grant to do this. It was sponsored by the Virginia Commission for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Wytheville Foundation. We all know what a courageous person that Harriet Tubman was. So she talked about her role in the Underground Railroad, but also how kids can lift their own voices. We had over 300 11th graders in attendance, and it directly connects to their Virginia standards of learning. So we're providing something that, in my opinion, is very vital in this community, where we're providing them with culture that otherwise, this national touring show may not be able to come here, that directly connects to their Virginia standards of learning. These are educational programs that our broader community may not know about, but they're important to our mission, and we're going to continue to do them. But again, when we think about the Wytheville Foundation and all that funding, this is what that's going to. But the piece that we're missing is that operational side to help support that. If we don't have the operational side, then unfortunately, we won't be able to do programs like this as easily. So. We also programmed the Science of Sound. Again, this was sponsored by the Virginia Commission for the Arts, the National Endowment of the Arts, Hitachi Energy, and the Wytheville Foundation. We had over 300 fifth graders in attendance. And again, the lessons that they learned that day are directly connected to their standards of learning. It's kind of hard to see, but on the slide there, they're not learning how fun it is to play the trumpet. They're learning how about energy waves and sound waves and amplitude and wavelengths. What I like to think about this is not only the impact those children had that day, but think about the impact 5 to 10 years from now, where maybe a kid gets really into science because he learned about sound waves during a symphony class. So it's the impact not only today, but 10 years from now. And we want the Millwall to be that cultural destination, that educational hub, where it's not just about coming and watching live fun events. We're here as an educational hub for our community. Americans for the Arts, this is a national governmental agency that directly connected with the National Endowment of the Arts. They say that students engaged in the arts have higher GPAs, their academic test scores, and their college-going rates. We recently programmed the Appalachia Festival. This was our second annual festival, and we all know the devastation that our community faced from the hurricane. We took donations for Open Door to distribute to the community for hurricane relief efforts. If anyone came to Appalachia Fest, our entire stage was full of donations for Open Door. We decided to make the festival completely free in light of our devastation that our community faced. And we also programmed educational classes. So, for example, we brought in a poet laureate. His name is Blues Rogers, to talk about all the kids walked away with around 15 poems, and this was, I believe, their honors class. So over 200 students in attendance for that poetry class. So if we think about what our devastation that our community faced, the National Arts for Everybody project says participating in the arts reduces stress and loneliness, which are risk factors for things like hypertension and heart disease. If we think about other things that we've offered in the community, there's an organization that I really love to work with called VetTix. I may have spoke about this the last time that I was here, but through Veteran Tix, vets can register with this company and they receive free tickets in the community. We've offered over 150 tickets just recently for veterans in our community to thank them for their service. And that's just something that we do regularly. We had showed a movie. It was a movie called Thelma. And the movie was about an elderly lady who was scammed in the community. And so we partnered with Skyline National Bank to present a class on fraud prevention. So we really believe in not only education for our youngsters, but for everybody in the community as well. So we're programming those kind of educational events. All right, so this is our show called Hip-Prov, and for those of you who'd ever seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, this had Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway. You can see in the picture there that there is not an empty seat in the house. If we look at economic impact, our ticket sales were almost at $30,000, and the way that you estimate economic impact, at least in the arts, is you take what we spent in the local community, and then you add that from your ticket sales and add about 1.5 to kind of estimate what the economic impact. So just on one show, we're looking at about $50,000 in local economic impact for that show. Those are folks that probably maybe they hired the local babysitter, they went to the restaurant, they stayed at the local hotel. And what's interesting about HIPROV is that it was a hyper-local show. I'll speak a little bit in a minute about what our numbers look like of non-local versus local. But HIPROV in particular, was mostly Wytheville and Bland County, which I find very interesting. Another reason why I think it's so important to have partners like the town of Wytheville is that for HIPROV, that is a high-risk, high-reward show. Meaning that show originally cost about $30,000. I got the bill down to $20,000, but then we got 2 show sponsorships, so that took care of half of that right away before I sold 1 ticket. By taking a high risk like that, our net off of that was over $10,000 for the theater. The challenge with that is that we may sell tickets in April or May, but the show isn't until November. So that money would have been allocated. So that's kind of quite a blow sometimes to cash flow, which is why we're trying to increase our cash flow. Next slide, please. So if we look at local versus non-local, these are just the ones that we know about and not our walk-up sales. Our non-local patrons are 61% and local patrons are 38%. And that's quite staggering if you think about, how many people are coming into Wytheville to see these shows and patroning other businesses. So again, if we think about what are we investing in when we talk about Millwall Theater, I would encourage us to think about we're investing in education, certainly. We're investing in the local economy through the Millwall. That's another way to look at it. We're investing in, we want to be a cultural destination. We want people to move here. And I think the more successful the Millwall is, the more successful the town of Wytheville is going to be. We're getting ready to launch an endowment campaign. So as you all know, our original restoration was a multi-million-dollar project. Due to COVID and the rise of cost, we had about $400,000 in expenses that were left over. The irony is that was just about what we had to put on our bridge lawn. So had those costs not risen, we would have come away from this project without any debt. And thanks to you all, that was a huge part of that success. Our endowment campaign, what we want to do is pay off that debt and then start the endowment so that way we can ensure that the Millwall is here for generations. So we are here today asking for that second allocation, but we're also here today saying we are working on solutions in addition to that to ensure that what the interest that we make off of the endowment campaign will help sustain the Millwall. How we're doing this, we have 512 seats in the Millwall. We're offering a seat plaque campaign where you can buy a plaque for your seat for you or a loved one. With 512 seats, the gross on that would be over $600,000. So that would easily pay off a $400,000 capital loan plus $200,000 to go into the endowment campaign, plus additional gifts that we're asking for as well. So we're working on strategies to help ensure the Millwall, in addition to partners like the town of Wytheville. We're also working on a solar project. The board is still looking this over. But we're estimating from Colite Technologies, which is the partner that we're working with, that it would save about $300,000 in electrical bills over the next 10 years. What's great about this project is that there's no out-of-pocket expense. There's a loan that we would get through a solar company, but the credits that we would make off of that would essentially go to pay the loan. We're also able to do this through Virginia tax credits, and I believe that there's a local partner that's gotten a grant as well to help us with this as well. So not only is it a great financial strategy, but it's a really great thing for the town, for local business to go solar and kind of be that inspiration for other businesses to do as well. If we look at our ticketed and contributed income, I think this is really striking. The blue line is your contributed income, so those are our gifts. The important thing to note, you can see how high it is in 2022. That's when we were raising money to get this theater open. After the theater opened, contributed income reduced drastically. So, and this is common for businesses. I was just talking with a community member from a local business in Rural Retreat that said that for their nonprofit, the donations reduced drastically because it was open, and the community thought, well, they're probably good now, they're open. But that's what we're looking at, is we've got to create sense making that the community still has to support the Millwald. And then our ticketed income has risen. It looks a little lower in 2024, but bear in mind that we still have 2 months worth of data to put in there. So we're actually right about, but you can see how tight it is from reduced donations in 2022 when we were raising money for the theater to be open. If we look at income and expenses, our total income, again, you can see is quite high. The important factor to note is that in 2023, we had a developer fee. So that's kind of why that data looks a little skewed. You can see that the total expenses drastically reduced from 2023 to 2024, as well as the total income. Allocated funds. So we've been focusing on providing mission-driven programming while reducing overhead. If we look at that top line, we look at our salaries, you can see that in 2024, that was reduced basically in half. What we talked about earlier about kind of reducing those full-time staff members, that certainly had a big part in those part-timers. So we're spending just about the same amount of money in programming, but in my opinion, it's not about the expense. We're providing better programming. Keep in mind that in 2023, we didn't have all those, or at least a lot of those educational programs. So we're spending the money more intelligently. We're providing more educational opportunities and more cultural-driven programming than we were in 2023. So if we look at the town of Wytheville, potential $75,000, we really look at your potential gift as the apex of what helps us sustain. We did get the With Plan Foundation grant for $150,000. That grant requires additional partners. If we do not have additional partners, then we've essentially not fulfilled our requirements for the grant. It helps us tackle on cash flow to be able to tackle on that debt that we talked about. It helps us ensure that we have the staffing that we need to make the Millwald Theater great and provide those educational programs that we need. It just helps us with general cash flow. Like I said before, we might have a sold-out show like Hip Prov, but the ticket sales might come in March or April, and then the bill comes later in the year. So that's one thing that we really have to continue to build is our cash flow. And it helps us go after additional funding as well if we're not always going after gifts for operations, if that makes sense. So why do we need an additional gift? So like I said, those grant dollars go towards programming. It doesn't go towards operations. We just spoke about how the grants require additional funders. We need additional cash flow to sustain the operations. We also see the town of Wytheville as a partner. We're here to work with you all in any way that we can. Some potential examples is the town of Wytheville puts on a lot of events. That's certainly something that we have expertise in. I certainly come from a multi-venue background. I see the Millwald Theater not just as the building downtown, but really as an arts organization. So there are ways that we can partner together. Again, if we're thinking about what are we investing in, if we invest in Millwald Theater, it could be that as well, that we do see the town of Wytheville as a partner. So, thank you all very much. That is my presentation. I'd love to take any questions at this time if anyone has any.
I have a comment. I want to thank y'all for downsizing y'all's amount of people that are working, for everything that you're doing to replace all those people, and all the children's activities and all the children's programs that are there and that are coming. I think that's what it's all about.
Oh, thank you.
Johnny, do you have any figures about how you're impacting our lodging and meals taxes? Do you have any numbers that you can share that you're impacting, that we're receiving back?
I don't have full figures. There are estimates based off of when we get ticket sales. We know that they're coming from different states. So I can give you figures in terms of here are how many people visited from outside of Wythe County from the last, and here's how many did it. We could probably do a more closer estimate from that.
Do you have a rough estimate in your brain? 5%, 20%?
About 10%. Of all, we look at all shows, 10% that are coming from out of state for the lodging. Mhm.
I do have a couple questions. I know, I think back when you all were thinking about opening, that they were going to do like a nameplate on the arms.
Mhm.
And I know I'm glad you said the seat. So can you explain that a little bit more further in detail, sir?
Yes, and that's exactly the plan. Is we're having an event later this year when we release our endowment campaign. There's a website where you can fill out a form to honor yourself or a loved one, and it would be a plaque that goes on the seats. And what we're doing is I want to make sure that the Millwall is always accessible for the entire community and not just those for the uber rich. So, for example, through that seat plaque, some seats might be $1,500. Other seats might be $100 because we want to make sure that whatever level, you're able to come in. We want to make sure that everyone has access to the Millwall and feels like they have ownership of it. That's also our strategy in terms of ticketing. So, for example, if you look at our seat maps, typically we might make the first 3 rows or aisle seats more expensive, and then other seats we always discount pretty heavily, so that way anyone can come to the Millwall if they can.
Now, will that be placed on like the back of the seat or like the arm?
It'll be on the arm.
The arm, okay.
Uh-huh.
And I know when I came and did a tour, it was awesome. I enjoyed that. I do know that I had mentioned about like a wedding venue. If y'all reached out to anybody or like even like senior pictures, family portraits, and things like that.
We've certainly reached out to planners and let them know that we're available for rentals for that. I can't say that we've had any rentals since then, but we did take your suggestion and we reached out to a few planners and let them know that we were available. We've also reached out to the visitor center and let them know. We've actually gotten a lot of referral business from rentals from that. If they're full up, they'll send their renters our way.
I mean, how many rentals have we had since you came on board? And this is someone just rents a facility.
Yes.
And it's about how much? About $1,800?
So the cost is $1,750 for rent. Say, for example, we have a Christian program coming up in a couple weeks. That's a rental. The rent is $1,750 plus labor. It's a really great ancillary source of revenue, and it mitigates our risk, right? Because we don't. It doesn't matter if the show sells or not. So our rental programs are great.
Have we had since you came on board?
It's
Double digits.
yes, I would say 10 or 11, roughly.
We have before you came.
0.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How many corporate sponsors do we have before you came?
0, I believe. 1. Okay.
Is that what repeated?
Right. That's right.
We've had 13 since it's done. I mean, it's a different game.
Well, and I think that's great. I commend you on the slideshow and everything. But maybe a suggestion to maybe get some people maybe interested in for a wedding venue is find maybe a bride not a bride yet, or just having stage somebody in a wedding dress and down in a little beautiful little place downstairs that y'all had the set up with the mirrors and things like that. Or some bachelors, if anybody is fixing to get married, bachelor party down, just some pictures for marketing, and then just let them know, but great presentation. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
The other thing was just on the nameplates.
If you have any specific questions about any of the numbers I emailed or the budgets or things like that, you can ask tonight or feel free to reach directly out to me. And we're an open book. I mean, this is all public. We're a nonprofit. Everything we're doing is open for everyone to see and understand. I can understand that you can get buried in some of that stuff when a guy like me starts throwing numbers around. But I will say this, and I'll stand up and say it. I didn't want to say, I wanted Donnie to go first, but I do want to say that I think it's important for us to understand the nature of the relationship with the town and the Millwall and the origin of where we came from. Y'all funded us initially with a $600,000 grant through your economic development department. And we are an economic development project. And we're not an economic development project for everybody. We're a town of Wytheville economic development project, and one that you should rightly be very proud of with what we're doing here. But the partnership, that to me was the beginning of the partnership, not the end. As we continue to do things and go forward, we're going to continue to be that economic development partner and cultural center of these things we do. As I was thinking about coming here today and us presenting, I thought about my lifetime in Wytheville. And I remember when we opened the 4th Street Community Center. and played basketball there in the 5th grade, the first day it was open. I remember how big a deal we thought that was in this community to get that 4th Street Center, because prior to that, we didn't have anything. We went and played in whatever school gym we could get to. And I thought about a lifetime, and I see these people here who also are going to be talking about big visions, And if you think about my lifetime, the things that have come to fruition, whether it's the community meeting center, which is amazing, $20 million project, people come to this community and just are staggered by that. Great vision, took years to develop. The parks, the downtown and downtown Wytheville and the streetscapes and all these things we've done required that vision. And we've always had that here. But one of the things that I like about economic development like this, it's an investment in community. Everybody thinks of economic development only as industrial development, and that's important. But when we invest in community development, like the projects they're wanting to do and the ones we've already done, and the downtown Wytheville projects and things like that, we get an immediate benefit for all of our citizens. Little kids going to free shows that they would never dream of seeing. Going to a splash pad they'll never dream of ever seeing. And yet we also create this community that attracts other people that want to retire here, move here, build houses, and expand our community. And the economic impact of that is very real. So you kind of get to have your cake and eat it too. I will say that for the Millwall, I did a 3-year budget, going out 25, 26, 27. And around the end of 27, we'll get out from under some of the restrictions we have with the tax credits that funded most of this program. Keep in mind, we funded $4.6 million of this program, of about a $5 million, maybe a $5.5 million build out. And $600,000 that came from the town. The rest of it was taken care of by private donors, tax credits, and grants. That's amazing. We got a $6 million theater and y'all got a $600,000 investment in it. That's pretty good bang for your buck. What we need from you now is this operational funding. And we certainly appreciated the first, because I'm going to tell you, it was really tight right to you. And y'all kind of saved the day. But what's going to happen is if you forecast and look through those budgets for the next 2 or 3 years, what we need to develop is a medium-term relationship with the town where we are building in around $150,000 a year to supplement the operating budget of the Millwall. And what we give you back is what Donnie was presenting for every citizen, for every person. And if we can get that and stabilize it and maybe go more like the way you fund the Joint Industrial Development Authority or Downtown Wytheville and those organizations, and less the line item that's kind of the smaller community things that you just throw in there, like, well, we need 5 for this or 10 for that, because this is a big ask. I don't underestimate how big it is. But I will tell you, I think it's a great investment. And you're only just in the beginning of how much impact it's going to have on the community, as the children we raise in this community are raised in a community that has this kind of an always ongoing artisan educational impact. We've had the Chautauqua Fest for years, but that's 8 days out of one time in the summer. This is happening multiple times every month. And accessibility is amazing. So we really appreciate y'all from the beginning, from that last grant. And we hope that you see the value in your investment in what we do, because we do look at it as a partnership with the town. So thank y'all.
And Mr. Jones, I do want to thank you all for coming and speaking to the whole council besides just the committee, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Any other questions? Comments?
Can you try to get somebody in there with a pet wedding picture dress? I don't know anybody, but anybody know? I mean, I just think that would be huge. Wedding venues, I have a supervisor that, and it was unreal, the money, and that's just one little piece of the nugget. So thank you.
So do we want to vote on it now?
Well, I think it's, they are a town partner, and we are highly vested in them. And they're asking for continued operational funding. And I'd like to see us continue funding for the budget year of 2024-25 in the amount of $75,000.
So is that a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any discussion?
I don't know if I could do the 75. I think there's maybe some other things they can look into, but fantastic job on that. I mean, phenomenal. And like I said, I do appreciate your presentation and everything you've added in. I could see going 50 and then, see where we are in a little bit. And then if they could come back in front of the whole council again, I wouldn't mind that idea. That way we're all on sort of the same page.
I'm not ready to, I mean, if you all want to vote or make a motion, that's fine, but I'm not ready to move forward at this time. I know that there are a lot of different projects that need funding. And I'm not ready to move forward with it. Not with $75,000. I'm just not ready.
What kind of
I'm only
figure?
one
What
vote.
kind of figure would you be interested in, Ms. Johnson?
Right now, I don't have a figure for you. And there's some other things that I would like to take a look at that need funding in our community. And right now, I'm just not ready to move forward with that. $150,000, I mean, that's a lot to me. And I know that, council prior to me partnered with the Millwall, and I like what they're doing. I like your programs. I have no issue. I like, the educational programs that you're having and those things. But right now, I'm not ready to move forward right at this moment. I need more time to think about it. And like I said, there are other projects that need money also. So right now, I'm not ready to move forward.
All right, so is there any other comments, dialogue? Do we want to move forward with this? Or? No. All right, we have a motion and a second. I was asking if there's any other. So we have a motion. We have a second. Is there any further dialogue? All right, so this will be a roll call vote. Mr. Gilman?
Can we say the amount again, if you don't mind?
That's 75,000.
75,000. And the motion was made by Ms. Patterson and second by Mr. Gilman. Am I correct?
Correct.
Would there be any discussion to have the 50,000 like across the board with council? Don't know your all's opinion on that.
I'm absolutely open for further discussion, Ms. Atkins. You're saying 50,000 is? Can we go back and revisit this then?
Yes, ma'am. That would be fine. Like I said,
You're in favor of revisiting this?
as long as it's brought in front of all of council. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. If we set the 50,000, like I said, when I went and did the tour, it was phenomenal. I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. But like I said, I think it would be awesome for a wedding venue as well, because I wasn't aware of how expensive weddings are now. But anyway, that could be just, like I said, a little piece thrown in there of income for in the town of Wytheville.
Okay.
But yes, ma'am, I think $50,000, revisit it in front of all of council.
And revisit, say, in April of 2025?
That'd be fine. Get some weddings in there. Pictures. Great. Got Christmas coming. Yes, ma'am.
So you're in favor of $50,000 now
Now.
and revisit April of 2025?
Yes, ma'am.
Further discussion.
Further
For
discussion.
them to bring back another financial report to this board.
Yes, ma'am. In front of everybody. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I have a question. So when you revisit it in 2025, how much are you going to revisit it for?
I'm going to revisit it for the total where we have paid a total of $150,000.
So that would just be like 25?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
That's what we agreed on last
Right.
May.
No,
okay?
ma'am, that's fine.
We
All right,
agreed
I'm
to
not asking for
revisit,
any-
but we did not agree on an amount to vote on. We agreed to revisit, and
We
we're
agreed on
revisiting.
$150,000 in May. And we agreed that we would pay them $75,000 the first payment.
I did not agree to $150,000. I said we could revisit it.
Well,
We paid $75,000. I agreed to that, and with a revisit further on into the year, before January.
I'm not going to argue the point with you, Ms. Johnson, but
I didn't
anyway,
ask you to.
I'm not. Okay.
So do we need to amend the motion?
I'll amend my motion. Mhm.
My suggestion to you, just to keep it a little cleaner, would be just to go on with the vote on this and vote down the 75,000, then do a new motion.
All right.
That's a lot cleaner way of doing it. So, Madam Mayor, you could restart the recall vote, and this is on the 75,000 to be really clear.
All right, so this is on 75,000. It will be a roll call vote, and we're counting it down. So, Mr. Gilman,
Gilman, aye. For this 5,000.
I've already agreed with Ms. Atkins that we would revisit this in April, so I'm going to vote no.
and Taylor, no?
No.
Now I'd like to make a motion that we do an operational funding of $50,000.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, again, roll call vote. Ms. Johnson?
Johnson, no.
Atkins, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Patterson, aye.
Gilman, aye.
So that motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you.
You got to adjourn, Madam Mayor.
Yes. We are adjourned from this work session.
Thank you all for coming.